We don't need to explain away inconsistencies. One of the biggest traps that we fall into in the Western world is asking what the text says rather than why does it say it. We look at the text through a scientific lens rather than what it's trying to communicate. So let's take Bart Ehrman's dilemma, which this TikToker put forward. Jesus says that Abiathar was the high priest when David went in to go eat the bread of the presence. But see, in 1 Samuel 21, it says Ahimelech. Actually, you know what? Forget it. Inerrancy is a conspiracy. Mark was wrong. Jesus is wrong. Christianity is a dead religion. Hold up. Why would Jesus, who has been educated from a very young age in the law and the prophets, say something so incorrect? Let's set the scene. Who is Jesus talking to? He's talking to the Pharisees, who are asking him, why are your disciples doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath? In fact, Mark 2 and 3 is a lot of the Pharisees asking Jesus why his disciples are doing particular things. In fact, they're mostly talking about the rules and regulations that they have created, mostly around Sabbath. This is why Jesus says later in Mark 8, watch out, beware the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod, meaning that their rules and regulations or lack thereof are heaping these burdens on top of people and spoiling the loaf. An idiom that Paul reiterates in 1 Corinthians and Galatians. Now, Jesus kind of lumps the Pharisees, the Sanhedrins, the Sadducees into the same category. I mean, kinda. I don't have time to work out all the nuance, but we see that when the chief priests and the Pharisees come to the Sanhedrin, we see that Caiaphas is acting as high priest. He's not from the line of Aaron, and meaning that his authority is kind of borrowed, for lack of better terms. And talking to the Pharisees, John the Baptist says that the axe is already at the root of the trees. A reference to Isaiah 10, where God is taking an axe to the trees of Lebanon, which heralds the coming of the Messiah who will grow up from the stump of Jesse. Well, what does this have to do with anything? Well, we see that Abiathar flees to David, who is the son of Ahimelech, after King Saul kills a bunch of priests. Well, who is Ahimelech? Well, Ahimelech is the son of Ahitub, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eli. Eli being the great high priest during the time of Samuel, Eli, the great high priest, was cursed by God for what he was doing in the temple, saying that he will see distress in the place of worship in spite of all that is good in Israel. No one in your family will ever reach old age. That all of his descendants will die violently, because God visits the father's iniquity on the children to the third and fourth generations, which means that God's wrath against Eli stops at Abiathar, the fourth generation. And Abiathar has not been cut off from the altar, but God has brought him grief and sadness to him, meaning who is really the great high priest accepted by God? Abiathar. Because Ahimelech is cut off, on David's visitation, it brings upon wrath on his household, and he is killed. And this, of course, coincides with David ascending to the throne that Saul was cut off from. And what does Jesus refer to himself as? The son of David, the shoot that grows from the stump of Jesse. So Jesus is actually saying, your rule, your authority has been cut off. You think you have the authority of Ahimelech, but Abiathar is the one who hasn't been cut off. And he is the friend of David. David, the priestly king. Pretty cool how that works together, isn't it?